Assalamu alaikum friends. Welcome to the Zishan Explain channel, where today we are going to narrate such a great and spiritual tale that will shake your hearts. Today's discussion is about a man who had so much wealth that it was impossible to count it. The fruits of his orchards and the milk of his cattle were enough for the entire city. And looking at his beauty and youth, people would be left stunned, saying they had never seen such a handsome young man in their entire lives. But can you imagine that suddenly, in just one moment, everything turns into a pile of ashes? Yes, today we are going to tell you a story that you will find hard to believe. This is the story of Prophet Ayyube, peace be upon him, who was the greatest and wealthiest businessman of his time, whose life is a journey of rise and trial, hearing which will truly give you goosebumps. Friends, our story begins in the ancient region of Khwarizm in Syria, where there was a strange fragrance and spirituality in the winds. The land here was so fertile as if it spat out gold, and on this very land, a child was born who was named Ayyube. Ayyube, A.S., was no ordinary human. The sacred blood of the prophets ran in his veins. His father, Musa bin Tara, was the great-grandson of Prophet Ibrahim, A.S., and his mother was from the lineage of Prophet Lut, A.S. Just imagine, what would be the caliber of a personality whose family tree includes such great and noble names? Nature was so kind to him that it gave him everything that every human dreams of. He was so handsome that one couldn't take their eyes off him. His body was so strong and fit that the full glow of youth was evident on his face. But his greatest wealth was his radiant heart, which kept beating in the remembrance of his Lord at all times. He was not just a prophet, he was one of the biggest billionaire businessmen of his time whose generosity was given as an example. Friends, now just imagine the place called Basnia. This was the place where Prophet Ayyube, A.S. lived. Here he had such a magnificent empire that it is almost impossible to find its equivalent in today's era. You will be amazed to hear that there were lush green orchards spread over miles where the trees were laden with fruits. Millions of camels traveled in rows through the deserts, and there were thousands of cows, buffaloes, and goats grazing, covering the entire land. He did not have one or two, but thousands of grand mansions. And the land was so vast that as far as the eye could see, his ownership and rule were visible. Friends, usually when a person gets so much immense wealth, he becomes arrogant and says, "My will is the rule and my word is the law. Whoever denies it cannot remain alive." But the doors of Prophet Ayyube, A.S., were always open for all the poor and needy. He had given open permission to the villagers that whoever needed milk could take it, and whoever needed fruits could easily pluck them. The result of his generosity was that now no needy or hungry person could be seen in the streets of the village. No one's stove remained cold. When the evening shadows fell, Ayyube, A.S., despite all his wealth and busy schedule, would fall into prostration before his Lord and spend hours expressing gratitude. The discussion of his worship and humility was not only on earth, but even the angels in the heavens sang songs of his praise. A new chapter was about to be added to this peaceful and beautiful journey of life when Ayyube, A.S., decided to get married. His choice fell upon the granddaughter of Prophet Yusuf, A.S., Bibi Rahmat. When her name itself is Rahmat, mercy, how would she be in beauty and character? Bibi Rahmat was not only unparalleled in beauty and elegance, but her patience and righteousness were to become a great example for women until the end of the world. When their blessed marriage took place, it was as if the doors of happiness opened further, and blessings rained down from the sky. Allah Almighty blessed them not with one or two, but with 48 children, among whom 24 were boys and 24 were girls, who came into this world in pairs. Now just imagine the beautiful atmosphere of this house where the giggles and laughter of 48 children would echo, where there would be an abundance of sustenance, and where only love would rule. For almost 80 years, Prophet Ayyube, A.S., saw this unparalleled era of prosperity and well-being. His household seemed like a small piece of paradise on earth. But friends, where there is light and radiance, darkness eventually finds its way. When the news of Ayyube, A.S.'s worship and gratitude pierced through the layers of the heavens and reached Iblis, Satan, the fire of jealousy erupted in his chest. He could not digest the fact that a human being could acquire so much wealth and glory, and still remain so loyal and humble to God. He devised a dangerous plan and claimed before God that Ayyube, A.S., only worshipped him because he had wealth, property, and children. Iblis said, "Ayyube only worships you because you have given him countless wealth and comforts. If all this is taken away from him, then you will see, he will forget to thank you." And then suddenly, that happened, which no one had even dreamed of. One day when the sun rose as usual, no one knew that this was going to be the most terrifying and trying day of Prophet Ayyub's life. Iblis let out such a terrifying scream that the whole earth trembled. That lush green valley of Basnia, where just moments ago the sounds of thousands of cattle were echoing, suddenly sank into a dreadful silence. Burning in the fire of jealousy, Iblis struck a blow the likes of which cannot be found in history. Such a terrifying scream echoed in the air that the birds flying in the sky fell lifeless from the trees. In the blink of an eye, those flourishing orchards and fields worth millions turned into hot flames of fire. Millions of camels, cows, and buffaloes, which were spread over miles, got caught in the fire and burned to ashes in agony. Black clouds of smoke covered the entire sky. Iblis, who was watching the spectacle of this destruction, took the form of a shepherd and reached the worried Prophet Ayyub. His clothes were torn, there was false panic on his face, and panting and lying, he said, "O Ayyub, look what your God, whom you worship day and night, has done. Fire rained from the sky and burned all your hard work, your cattle, your orchards to ashes." When Prophet Ayyub heard this heartbreaking news, instead of fear and grief, there was a strange peace on his face. There were certainly tears in his eyes, but there was not a single word of complaint or anger on his tongue. He slowly fell in prostration on the ground, and his soft yet impactful voice echoed in the air. "O Lord, all this was given by you, and you have taken it back. I am content and happy with your will in every condition." Seeing this submission and acceptance, Iblis felt ashamed. His first and biggest attack had failed miserably. But he did not know that the faith of Ayyub was stronger than a mountain. When Iblis saw that the loss of wealth could not break Ayyub, he now struck where any human's weakest nerve lies, his children. The grand mansion where all 48 children of Prophet Ayyub, 24 sons and 24 daughters, were present, Iblis shook its foundations through an earthquake. There was a tremendously loud explosion, and that magnificent mansion turned into a pile of rubble in a single jolt. Those rooms that were echoing with the sweet voices and laughter of children a little while ago, now only a deathly silence emanated from them. This time Iblis, taking the form of the children's teacher, came limping and with dirt on his head to Prophet Ayyub. He started wailing and crying falsely and said, "Alas, a calamity has struck. Your children, the light of your eyes, have died buried under the rubble of this mansion. I have seen them writhing with my own eyes. Is this the reward you get for so much worship?" Friends, this was the moment where an ordinary human's heart would burst and he would lose his senses. 48 young corpses at once. But Prophet Ayyub said something that became a guiding light for the world until the end of time. He let out a cold sigh, looked towards the sky, and then offering a prostration of gratitude, he said, "O Allah, now my heart will not turn towards anyone else except your worship. You have removed the last worldly love from my heart, so that I can be completely yours." At that very moment, Allah Almighty proudly declared to the angels, "Indeed, we found Ayyub to be very patient." The defeat of Iblis was exposed. The wealth was gone, the children were gone, but the head of Ayyub was still bowed before his Lord with full devotion. Iblis was now going mad with anger. He now asked Allah for a permission that took the most terrifying turn in history. That Iblis, who had destroyed the wealth and children, was now going to attack the sacred body of Ayyub. A disease so terrible that it is hard to describe in words, which was beyond human imagination, causing the flesh to rot and making even loved ones turn away. Now he made his final and most disgusting attack. Under Allah's divine wisdom, he was given control over the body of Ayyub. One day, when Prophet Ayyub was bowing in prostration before his Lord, reciting the praises of Allah, Iblis blew a poisonous breath on his body. This was no ordinary air, but a painful wave like the heat of hell. In no time that beautiful body, which once glowed with the radiance of youth, became covered with large blisters and wounds. The pain was so severe that the flesh of his body started rotting, and maggots infested those deep wounds. Just imagine this painful scene, friends. Those hands that once distributed gold to the beggars were now unable to even move themselves. But sacrifice yourself for the patience of that prophet. When any maggot fell down from his body, he would search for it, pick it up, and put it back on the wound. And smiling, he would say, "Eat the sustenance provided by God. You too are the creation of Allah. Eat the sustenance that has been destined for you." The disease had riddled his body, but his heart and his tongue were still fresh with the remembrance of God. The name of Allah came out with every breath. Days passed, and the severity of the disease created such a stench that the villagers who were once buried under his favors became troubled. Those people who once considered it a matter of pride to sit at the dining mat of Prophet Ayyub now covered their noses with a handkerchief while passing by his house. The worshippers coming to the mosque started complaining that their worship was being disturbed due to his foul smell. The 3 closest friends of the village who were with him until now also backed away, saying, "Perhaps a great wrath of God has descended upon Ayyub, lest we too get caught in it." Eventually, the villagers made this cruel decision to expel him from the city so that the people of the village would not be inconvenienced. Prophet Ayyub feeling sorrowful, said to his wife Bibi Rahmat, "O Rahmat, take me somewhere far away from here." Bibi Rahmat, whose feet had blisters and heart was shattered with grief, asked the villagers for help but only received stones and threats from all sides. Not a single person was ready to offer a shoulder to carry him. Everyone had closed their doors. Finally, this great and loyal woman lifted her frail and helpless husband in her arms like a flower. She took him far away from the village to a place where the city's garbage was thrown. A great prophet, the chosen servant of Allah who once lived a royal life, was now going to spend his life on a pile of garbage where sun, rain and dirt were his destiny. In this most difficult time, Bibi Rahmat saw and endured what probably no other woman in history would have endured. She would do manual labor in the ordinary houses of the village all day long, just to manage 2 dry pieces of bread for her sick husband. People would taunt her, reject her, humiliate her, and even threaten to set dogs on her. Then a day came when no one in the entire city gave Bibi Rahmat any work. Everyone refused to give her a job. Evening was falling, there was starvation in the house for many days, and Ayyub was weak from severe hunger. Bibi Rahmat had nothing to sell, except her beautiful golden hair, which was the pride of her personality and the ornament of a woman. Then, out of helplessness, she went to a shopkeeper and cut off the locks of her hair and sold them for the sake of bread. When she reached home and Prophet Ayyub saw her head covered with a cloth, his heart became restless. When the truth was finally revealed that today, for the sake of bread, his life partner had to trade her honor, her beloved hair, tears also fell from the eyes of this great patient prophet. Bibi Rahmat continuously served her husband selflessly in this manner for 7 years, without a single complaint. When Iblis saw that Ayyub was saying Alhamdulillah, praise be to Allah, even in this condition, even on this garbage dump, he became furious and went mad. He understood that the last way to defeat Ayyub could now only be found through his wife, Bibi Rahmat. He disguised himself as a sympathetic old traveler and sat on the path of Bibi Rahmat from where she used to pass. He made such an offer that made the tired Bibi Rahmat's steps falter for a moment. He tried to trap her in a net that seemed like a cure, but in reality was the pure poison of shirk, polytheism. Bibi Rahmat, who was truly broken inside after selling her hair, was walking exhausted on the path. At that very moment, Iblis stood before her in the form of a radiant-faced, highly sympathetic old traveler. He asked with great gentleness and a sweet voice, expressing sympathy, "O noble woman, your husband, who was once such a great prince, why is he in this condition today? Has his God forgotten him?" Hearing this, tears involuntarily fell from Rahmat's eyes. She poured out the sorrow of her heart and all her sufferings before that stranger. Seizing this opportunity, Iblis spewed his poison and said, "Alas, even after this destruction, your husband still takes the name of the same God who threw him out of the palace onto a garbage dump. I have a very easy cure. Take this baby goat, go to your husband and tell him to slaughter it in my name instead of Allah. He will become healthy and young this very instant." Bibi Rahmat, who was somewhat losing her mental balance due to years of fatigue, grief and hunger, fell into this trap. Considering him to be a truly kind-hearted stranger, she thanked him and happily ran towards Prophet Ayyub taking that baby goat. There was hope in her heart that today her 7-year struggle and pain were going to end. When Bibi Rahmat arrived, panting at that garbage dump where Prophet Ayyub lay shattered with wounds, there was a new hope in her eyes. She quickly narrated the whole story and said, "My dear husband, stop now, there is a limit to patience too. Slaughter this baby goat taking that old man's name, so that we can get rid of this hellish suffering." Hearing this, it was as if the lightning of majesty rushed through the frail and sick body of Prophet Ayyub His face flushed with anger, and despite the wounds, he said in agony, "O Rahmat, The enemy of God, Iblis, has misled you. You urged a prophet towards shirk? Then he asks such a question, which is a lesson for people of intellect until the end of the world. Rahmat, just tell me, how many years did we spend in prosperity and blessings? Rahmat bowed her head in shame and answered, 80 years. He asked, and how many years has it been since this illness and trial came? Wiping her tears, the lady replied, only 7 years. Prophet Ayyube, A.S., said in majesty, you have not been fair to Allah. We have received countless blessings for 80 years, and yet the 80 years of trial haven't even been completed, and your faith has faltered. By Allah, if I am cured of this disease, I will strike you with 100 lashes as a punishment for this sin, that is, the urging of shirk. Go, get out of my sight this very moment. Bibi Rahmat, whose heart was pierced with remorse for her mistake, left from there crying and cursing herself. Now Prophet Ayyube, A.S., was completely alone in the world. There was no wealth, no children, no health left, and now that sole support and comfort, his wife, had also gone far away. Now the scene had completely changed. That pile of garbage, the terrifying silence of the night, and a being whose body's maggots were now tormenting him even more. But Prophet Ayyube, A.S., was more afraid of the fact that Iblis might make a final attack on his faith and mislead him, rather than the illness of his body. In this helplessness and struggle of faith, he raised his gaze towards the sky with tears. He sighed with extreme humility and only said, Rabbi anni masani yaddurru wa anta arhamur rahimin, meaning, O my Lord, hardship has touched me, and you are the most merciful of the merciful. Friends, Allah Almighty liked this humility and devotion of His servant so much that revelation immediately descended from the throne. A voice and call came from the sky. O Ayyube, strike your foot on the ground. As soon as his foot struck the earth, by the command of God, the chest of the earth split open, and a beautiful spring of cool and sweet water gushed out from there. A call came again from the sky. O Ayyube, this cool water is for you to bathe in and drink. As soon as Prophet Ayyube, A.S., bathed in this spiritual spring, the miracle of nature began. As the water fell on his body, those festering wounds, those blisters and those maggots disappeared as if they never existed. His flesh filled back on his body, his skin became soft and glowing like a rose. And that weakness transformed into a new youth that was even stronger and more handsome than before. When he drank this healing water, all his internal ailments and pains also vanished forever. By the grace of Allah, that pile of filth had now turned into a blooming garden. On the other side, Bibi Rahmat, whose heart was torn by the separation from her husband and remorse, returned crying towards the same place. On the way, she was worried that some beast or wild animal might not have eaten her lonely and sick husband. But when she reached there, the entire map of the place had changed. The garbage and dirt were gone, there were magnificent mansions, springs and greenery there. There she saw an extremely handsome, young and awe-inspiring man sitting peacefully on a platform. Tears welled up in Bibi Rahmat's eyes. She nervously went to that man and asked with great innocence, "O young man, have you seen a sick and extremely weak man here, who used to lie here on this garbage? For God's sake tell the truth, he was my beloved husband. I am afraid that something might have happened to him." Hearing this, Prophet Ayyube A.S. smiled, and in his eyes was the same old affection and love. He asked, "If your husband comes in front of you, will you be able to recognize him by looking at him?" Crying, Rahmat replied, "Yes, in his youth he looked exactly as handsome as you." Then Prophet Ayyube A.S. said with immense love, "O my loyal wife, I am your Ayyube. My Lord has heard my painful plea, and with his mercy has returned everything to me even better than before." Hearing this, both looked at each other and burst into tears. But friends, these tears were no longer of grief, but of gratitude and reunion. Happiness had already returned to their lives, to the extent that Allah granted them double the wealth and property as before, and new children too. As time passed and Prophet Ayyube A.S. spent a new and prosperous part of his life, he gathered his children and loved ones. In the light of his experiences, he gave them a very precious piece of advice. Prophet Ayyube A.S. said, "O my dear ones, never be arrogant in life when you have a mountain of wealth, because the Lord who knows how to bestow can also take everything away in a single moment. And when difficulties come and everything is lost, do not despair, but hold tightly to the garment of patience. Because the end of those who are patient is always better, and gratitude is the only way that brings back the taken blessings in double measure." These advices of Prophet Ayyube and his patience strengthen our faith even today. After this great trial and reward, Prophet Ayyube lived for approximately 400 years and continued to thank his Lord. Friends, if you like this spiritual incident, then keep supporting the Zishan Explain channel like this. May Allah grant all of us too the ability to practice patience and gratitude like Prophet Ayyube. Ameen.